Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste. We have looked at the evolutionary history of Ayurveda, the basic concepts, and Ayurveda's approach to prevention and treatment of diseases. Now let us look at the contributions of Ayurveda. How is Ayurveda functioning in today's world, and what were the historical contributions Ayurveda made to the development of medicine? So today Ayurveda is, emerging as an alternative system, complementary and alternative system of medicine worldwide. Let us look at the global presence of Ayurveda. Ayurveda is officially recognized in 93 countries according to the 2019 WHO Global Report on Traditional and Complementary Medicine. And out of these 93 countries, 32 have Ayurveda practitioners. 16 have rules in place to regulate it, and 5 offer health insurance for Ayurvedic treatments. This is significant considering the fact that for a long period of time, Ayurveda has not been recognized. And even today in Europe and USA, there is only limited recognition for Ayurveda. So these statistics point out that Ayurveda is slowly gaining acceptance outside the boundaries of India. We'll now look at the situation of Ayurveda in India. In India, Ayurveda is a recognized medical system with 497 Ayurvedic medical colleges. This is based on the 2025 notification of the National Commission for Indian System of Medicine, NCISM. These colleges offer a Bachelor of Ayurvedic Medicine and Surgery program, and BAMS is the degree that you will get if you officially study Ayurveda in India. Now this 5-year program includes 1 year of internship, and many of these colleges also provide postgraduate courses in clinical and non-clinical Ayurvedic specialities, leading to the award of the MD Ayurveda degree. So when you do an MD in Ayurveda, you have Ayurveda in bracket to distinguish it from an MD in modern medicine. So some Western schools also teach Ayurvedic principles, but it's not widely accepted. Only in India we have a formal degree program in Ayurveda. In outside India, they offer only certificate courses. Most of them are 1 year, 2 year, some are even just 6 months. But exceptionally in some countries like in Germany, in UK, there used to be a 4-year Masters in Ayurveda degree program which leads to a MA or MSc in Ayurveda. But a full-fledged medical degree like the one that is offered in India is not seen in other parts of the world. Exception being, of course, Sri Lanka, Nepal, where they have. But these are countries sharing the same cultural background of India. Now, if you look at the Indian medical heritage, it is important to understand that Ayurveda is part of a very, very diverse medical heritage. We have the non-codified system, the folk practices, the tribal medicine. So these are all prevalent in India. And it is in this backdrop that Ayurveda is embedded as the leading indigenous, codified medical system. The codified medical systems of India include Ayurveda, Siddha, Soa, Rigpa and Yoga. Ayurveda, Siddha and Soa, Rigpa are very closely related. Siddha is more a regional medical system specialized in Tamil Nadu, and Soa, Rigpa came from Tibet, and it is a combination of Indian and Chinese systems of medicine. And then of course Yoga was a philosophy, a way of living, a way of spiritual practice, but nowadays Yoga is also used for therapeutic purposes. In India, we also have naturalized systems of medicine. The medicine systems that came from outside India, which includes Unani. Unani is the Arabic medicine which has its origin in Greece. naturopathy and homeopathy, which came from Europe. Homeopathy especially has its origin in Germany. So all these practices are prevalent in India, making India one of the most diverse and rich pluralistic healthcare systems of the world. Now we look at some of the major contributions to the world of medicine that Ayurveda in India has made, and I would like to begin with smallpox inoculation. Now I have to point out that smallpox inoculation was not documented in any of the Ayurvedic texts, but it was in practice, especially during the colonial period. The Britishers who came to India encountered this mind-boggling practice. We know that at that time smallpox was a major challenge, and worldwide there was no solution for management of smallpox, and a lot of people used to die or be crippled, lose their eyesight as a result of the disease. Now, India is an alternative to China as an origin of this spread of inoculation. Inoculation is a kind of vaccination, and it is believed that from India or China, this practice spread to the Ottoman Empire and Europe. So, two 18th century accounts by English residents of India gives description of inoculations done by the Brahmins of our country. Their technique involved dipping a sharp iron needle into a smallpox pustule and then puncturing the skin repeatedly in a small circle, usually on the upper arm. So, from an infected person, the pus is taken on a needle, and then to a healthy person, this is, transferred by pricking, and this leads to a minor infection, and then as a result of which the person will develop immunity. So all three commentators on Indian practice agree that inoculation was used predominantly in Bengal, the region that includes modern West Bengal in India and Bangladesh. Howell, one of these Britishers, thought that it had been used there for many hundreds of years. So early in the 18th century, variolation, which is what was referred to then as inoculation, was introduced in Britain and New England to protect people likely to be at risk of infection with smallpox. And until Edward Jenner discovered the new process of vaccination, which was derived from the cows, smallpox inoculation was prevalent in India. Another practice that we can see that was brought to the notice of Westerners and especially Britishers who came to India was rhinoplasty. So here is an account extracted from Know Your City. People who go to Pune, it is fascinating to learn that Potter's community in Pune were actually performing nose repair surgery. So this shows how medical techniques were, made publicly available. So it was not even a doctor who did it. There was this Potter community who specialized in nose repair. In those days, as a punishment, people's noses used to be severed. And so this surgery became popular. Damaged nose would be reconstructed by a skin graft. So in 1793, this was actually, documented, and you can see the picture of a person's severed nose. And by taking a flap of skin from the forehead, the nose would be reconstructed. This nose reconstruction surgery was described in a letter to the editor published in the Gentleman's Magazine in October 1794. And this has actually proved to be a watershed moment in the history of plastic surgery. Actually, the development of modern plastic surgery can be traced to this, the practice that was documented in Pune, especially the field of corrective rhinoplasty. Even today, the nose reconstruction surgery follows this ancient method, and it is referred to in modern textbooks of surgery as the Indian method. So this particular letter, appearing under the heading Curious Chirurgical Operation, gave a brief account of a nasal reconstruction surgery carried out in Pune. And, it was called Pune by the British in those days. And this was done by a native potter on an Indian bullock cart driver who had suffered nasal mutilation. So the letter introduced the Indian method of nasal reconstruction using a forehead flap, and this got introduced to Europe and quickly caught attention in the West, after which plastic surgery also developed into a major discipline. Now, nose reconstruction surgery is actually first described in the Sushruta Samhita, which was written many thousands of years ago. It is also fascinating to learn that the knowledge of microscopic organisms have been anticipated in the classical Ayurvedic textbooks. So textbooks like Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita point out that the human body is home to innumerable organisms. Some are pathogenic Vaikarikas and some are non-pathogenic or Sahaja. So the existence of microscopic pathogens that are not visible to the naked eye has been postulated in Ayurvedic texts. Kejit Saukshmya Dadarshanaha, as it is mentioned in Sanskrit. Some are so small, so microscopically small that they cannot be seen with the naked eye. So Charaka Samhita, Sushruta Samhita and Ashtanga mention about these invisible organisms, and this perhaps are the earliest reference to infectious diseases because they are called as Vaikarikas. Vaikarika means those which cause diseases. So disease causing microorganisms, this concept is seen in the classical Ayurvedic texts. It is also fascinating to note that some of these texts talk about genetic transmission of diseases. In fact, the Charaka Samhita specifically tells that genetic information is coded at 3 levels: Bija, Bija Bhaga and Bija Bhaga Avayava. Bija means seed, Bija Bhaga means part of the seed, and Bija Bhaga Avayava is fraction of the part of the seed. So it's something like the genome, chromosome and gene. They also had an idea of how the genetic information was organized in a hierarchical manner. And if a part of the seed is damaged, the organ representing that part of the seed would also get damaged. So this is a very, very ancient, crude understanding of the genetic basis for transmission of diseases. Now there is a work by Bhela. Bhela, as we discussed earlier, is one of the disciples of sage Atreya and a contemporary of Agnivesha, who wrote the first textbook on Ayurveda. So Bhela actually distinguishes between 2 processes, one that happen in the eye and the other that happens in the brain for vision to occur. So we know today that the image is captured in the eye retina, but it is processed in the brain, the visual cortex. So probably this is a very preliminary but very early understanding, because Bhela is one of the earliest acharyas or teachers of Ayurveda. So many, at least 3,500 years ago, our Ayurvedic acharyas were discussing about processes that happen in the eye and in the brain for vision to happen. And this is mind-boggling. It took many centuries, later for us to understand the mechanism of retina and the visual cortex and the role these play in vision happening. Now Bhela is also very interesting because there are many unique observations of Bhela. Generally, many ancient traditions, not only Ayurveda but all over the world, considered heart to be the seat of the mind. So the brain was not so well understood. But heart, we know, is an organ that is primarily engaged in pumping of the blood. So associating mental functions to the heart seemed to be, a misunderstanding. But you can see in Bhela Samhita, the work of Bhela very clearly, without any ambiguity, mentions that mind is, located in the head and not actually in the heart. Of course, there is a connection between heart and mind also, which other texts talk about. But the functioning of the active mind happening in the head region is very clearly mentioned by Bhela. So he makes this statement, Shiras Talvandaragadam Sarvendriya Param Manaha. The mind, which is beyond all the sense organs, which is the master of all the sense organs, is located between the palate and the upper tip of the head. of the cranium, of the skull. So this is the only clear reference in the Ayurvedic tradition to the mind being located in the head region or in the brain. Now we also have in another textbook called Sharngadhara Samhita, which is actually a book focusing on pharmaceuticals. This textbook describes the process of respiration. So Sharngadhara describes the process of respiration succinctly. He says, Nabhista pranapavanaha. So this whole respiration, the extent of respiration to the navel region, the abdominal muscles being involved in respiration is also hinted here. That the prana actually moves from the middle of the abdomen, the navel, in an upward direction. Nabhista pranapavana sprishtva hrit kamalandara. The connection between respiration and heart is also implicated here. That the prana actually touches the inner chambers of the heart. We know today that oxygenated blood is coming from the lungs into the heart. Sprishtva hrit kamalandaram. Kanthat bahirvidiryad. It comes out of the throat. The air comes out of the throat. And the purpose of the respiration, this is the most beautiful part of this description, is that the purpose is to drink the nectar of the atmosphere. So, were they aware of oxygen? Definitely they did not know the chemical structure of oxygen, but they anticipated that some kind of replenishment with, rejuvenating agent is happening when we breathe. When we breathe, we are drinking the nectar of the air. That is called as ambara piyusha. So probably this is the most crude understanding of oxygen and the whole purpose of respiration as we understand today. So this is described in the around the 13th century Common Era by Acharya Sharngadhara. And then we have the description of circulation. Now we know that heart not only pumps blood, but the pumped blood is also coming back. Ayurveda recognized circulation of rasa. Ayurveda pointed out that blood cells are not completely circulating. They are getting trapped in the capillaries. It is the rasa that is pumped out of the heart and returns to it through the veins. They did not understand the full mechanism of circulation, definitely. They did not understand about the various chambers and its structures. But Bhela Samhita clearly points out the blood not only flows out of the heart, but it also returns to the heart. Hrudo raso nissaradi tasmad eti cha sarvada siravir hridayam cheti tasmad hrit prabhava siraha. So through the siras the blood comes to the heart. Through the siras it spreads all over the body. And so there is a circulation of the blood. So this is perhaps a very early and crude understanding of circulation given by Bhela. So in this lecture we have looked at the contributions of Ayurveda to medical science itself, and we know that many modern findings, because Ayurveda gives us a holistic comprehensive understanding of the body. Modern medicine gives us an understanding of the mechanisms and the mechanistic principles of how the body is organized. But even in those areas, Ayurveda has given a lot of preliminary understanding and findings. That is what we understood in this lecture. Now, I would recommend strongly that you deepen your knowledge by reading some books which talk about these contributions of Ayurveda. One such is The Roots of Ayurveda by Ujastik Dominic, which is selection from Sanskrit medical writings, and a book by Kutty Krishna Warrior, The History of Ayurveda, which talks about the spread of Ayurvedic knowledge in a global and Indian context. So with that, we come to the conclusion of this lecture introducing the basic concepts of Ayurveda. Thank you very much for your attention. Namaste.